So when you picture the nativity scene, you've got Mary, Jesus, the shepherds, maybe some angels,
Hmm.
and Saint Joseph is always there, but he's always the quietest one in the room, isn't he?
He's just slightly off to the side.
Exactly, just off center. He's the man who speaks zero recorded words in scripture, performs no big miracles. He can feel a bit like a, I don't know, stage manager. Necessary, but marginal.
And that perception that
Yeah.
he's marginal, that's precisely what we're going to dismantle in this deep dive.
Right.
We're looking at theological sources that insist Joseph isn't a side character at all.
Hmm.
He's the necessary balance. He's the anchor that stabilizes some really core doctrines.
Yeah, we've got a whole stack of sources here, and they're all focused on his role, specifically how it connects to Mary's perpetual virginity. So our mission for you, the listener, is to see how Joseph completely transforms that doctrine.
It's a huge shift.
It really is. Instead of it being a story about, say, isolation or withdrawal, Joseph makes it a shared, sanctified vocation that happens within a real family.
The sources really hammer this home. Joseph is essential because his presence forces the church to develop a much richer anthropology.
Okay, that sounds a bit academic. Let's unpack that. A richer anthropology. What does that actually mean?
It just means a deeper understanding of what it means to be human in relationship.
Yeah.
It's this profound idea that our connections, love, commitment, fatherhood, they're defined by choice and fidelity, not just by biology.
I see.
He grounds the incarnation in the reality of human society. He stops it from becoming some kind of, purely spiritual, disembodied event.
And that sets up the first big challenge, right? The one that makes a lot of people
It's
pause.
a big one.
How can Mary be a perpetual virgin and, at the same time, a true wife? To the modern ear, that sounds like a contradiction or, a legal loophole. Was he just a glorified chaperone?
That's the exact question the early texts jump on. Theologians are insistent. Joseph was a true husband to Mary. This was not a legal fiction. It wasn't a convenience.
So his consent, his yes, actually matters.
It's morally and theologically significant because Mary's virginity is lived inside a real marriage covenant. And that covenant is defined as a union of life, of fidelity, of mutual self-gift.
Not just by sexual relations.
Exactly. The tradition is clear that the core of marriage is that covenantal promise before God, which isn't reducible to the physical act. Joseph proves a marriage can be complete and holy without it.
And this brings us right to that famous line in Matthew's gospel where he's called a just man. The sources spend so much time on that one word. Why is dikaios just so critical here?
Oh, it's everything. It's the key to his character. To be just or righteous meant he was perfectly aligned with God's will and the law.
So when he found out Mary was pregnant, he had a huge problem.
Profound dilemma. Legally, under the law, his duty was to divorce her. But his justice, his righteousness, was tempered by love.
So he didn't want to expose her to public shame.
Precisely. He decides to divorce her quietly. His justice says obey the law, but his righteousness says protect Mary. And then the angel comes in the dream.
And changes everything.
He realizes God's plan is the higher law. And his first act of obedience is taking her into his home, claiming that role of husband and father. He reframes virginity not as an absence of love, but as this consecrated form of marital love.
So if fidelity defines the marriage, then that same fidelity has to shape his fatherhood. I mean, he's not the biological father, but the sources are emphatic that he is the true human father.
In every social, legal, and moral way that matters, yes. He is the functional father, the formative father. The sources point to 4 specific, concrete paternal acts that prove this.
Okay, let's go through them because this is really the evidence, isn't it?
It is. So first, Joseph names Jesus. This was the key paternal act in Jewish culture. The father establishes the child's identity and vocation. By naming him Jesus, God saves, he's fulfilling the angel's command.
He's stamping him with his destiny.
He is. Second, he protects him. The flight into Egypt is the classic example. He becomes the physical shield for the family, leading them as refugees.
And third, and this one gets overlooked a lot, he teaches him.
Yes. He teaches him the law, but also a trade. By teaching Jesus carpentry, Joseph anchors the Son of God in the dignity of human labor. He sanctifies work.
Right, the sweat of the brow. And the fourth one is crucial for prophecy.
Absolutely. He introduces him into the house of David. It's through Joseph's legal fatherhood that Jesus inherits the Davidic lineage,
Good.
fulfilling that key messianic prophecy.
And this is where you see that theological principle you mentioned in action.
Fatherhood is not reducible to biology.
That authority exists to serve what you've been entrusted with, not to own it.
Exactly. He gives Jesus a legal identity. He forms him, he protects him, but he never possesses him. He serves the mystery. And this gives enormous weight to modern ideas of adoption, foster care, spiritual fatherhood. Love is what forms a person, not just DNA.
Okay, let's pivot to maybe the most fascinating detail about him, his silence.
Yeah.
We have 0 recorded words. And the writings we're looking at say this is not an accident. This is deliberate theological communication.
It absolutely is. In the Bible, the figures who are silent before God, think of Zechariah or Joseph, they are figures of deep, deep receptivity.
So what is his silence communicating?
It signals reverence.
Hmm.
It's listening instead of asserting. It's an obedience that comes before you have all the answers. He doesn't debate the incarnation. He accepts it in silent trust.
And God speaks to him in dreams, not in, loud pronouncements in the temple.
Which is so telling. Dreams bypass the analytical mind and speak right to the heart. His actions show that faith doesn't require full comprehension.
It just requires trustful action.
Yes.
But does that mean he didn't struggle? I mean, his immediate action taking Mary and fleeing to Egypt, does that imply he didn't have human questions about all this?
That's a great question. And the theologians would say, no, it's not that he didn't struggle. It's that his decisive action shows the resolution of that struggle through trust. His silence protects the mystery. He chooses to act in service rather than trying to, philosophize about it. It's what they call obedient freedom.
A righteous man who freely chooses a vocation he never planned for.
Exactly.
And this brings us to a huge point for modern listeners, especially around identity. Joseph seems to challenge so many assumptions about masculinity that it's about assertion or volume or domination.
He is a completely countercultural icon of masculinity. The sources show him embodying strength through restraint.
Authority through service.
And love through protection, not possession. He protects Mary's unique calling and her autonomy, respecting her as someone consecrated to God.
So let's talk about his chastity then. Why isn't it just passive?
Because it's not about avoidance, and it's certainly not a negative view of sexuality. I mean, his role completely refutes that. If sex were seen as bad, his status as a true husband would be undermined.
Which it isn't.
It isn't. Instead, his chastity is an act of reverence. It's a profound demonstration of self-mastery ordered toward love and mission. He takes control of himself so he can serve God's plan.
You know what's also really interesting here? By being a carpenter, he places the incarnation right in the world of honest, blue-collar work.
A huge contrast with Roman ideas of power or even some Jewish hierarchies that valued the intellectual elite.
Right.
His fidelity to his vocation, his work, his family, that's what validates his manhood. It shows greatness isn't in conquest, but in faithfulness to the daily task. It's a powerful inversion of worldly power.
And his presence, as the sources call it, prevents Mary in isolation.
Yes. He ensures Mary lives in a household, that Jesus grows up in a family, and that God enters history through ordinary structures that are transformed by grace.
So the divine doesn't just visit Earth.
It takes up residence. In the kitchen, in the workshop, in the messy, hidden reality of family life. That whole focus on the hidden life of Jesus, those decades spent under Joseph's roof, is fundamental.
It really is. It teaches you that holiness grows in routine faithfulness. God's biggest work unfolds in ordinary life, in unseen sacrifice.
And the work of salvation isn't just the public ministry. It's also the decades of routine duty, teaching, and support that Joseph provided. He sanctifies daily labor, proving that invisible sacrifice is the bedrock of greatness.
Okay, so given all this guardian of the incarnation, true husband, true father, model of masculinity, why did devotion to him emerge so slowly? I mean, it really only gained momentum from the Middle Ages on.
The sources suggest that delay is actually fitting. It's like one final lesson from Joseph himself.
How so?
His whole vocation is to point away from himself, toward Christ. He never draws attention to his own merits. So it makes sense that his holiness is discovered in hindsight.
But why that hindsight? Why did it kick in during those later centuries?
Well, as the church moved past the early focus on Christ's public acts, there was a growing realization that human identity was becoming more fragile.
With societal changes.
Exactly. Industrialization, the devaluing of manual labor, and later, the modern crises of identity. They made Joseph's quiet example newly essential. He provided a corrective, showing the dignity of labor, the holiness of service, the power of domestic fidelity. He became the patron of ordinary lives.
So, wrapping this all up, what does this mean for us today? The core revelation from this deep dive seems to be that Joseph isn't an accessory to the story. He's its necessary balance.
That's it. Through him, we learn that love is measured not by biological priority or by possession, but by fidelity to a divine purpose
It's a theology of trust over control.
and service over assertion. He teaches that authority can be gentle, that masculinity can be holy without domination. He makes the mystery of the incarnation understandable by anchoring it in commitment, obedience, and the quiet dignity of work.
He validates the ordinary life, the unseen work that really is most of our existence.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you to take away. If Joseph's greatness lies precisely in what he doesn't claim, power, recognition, biological priority, what part of your own life, the routine, the unseen, the unheralded sacrifice you make every day? What if that's the very thing entrusted to you as a sacred mystery? Joseph challenges you to find profound worth in the invisibility of daily faithfulness.